Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special playoff edition of the Strike Zone. I'm your host, Hollywood James Knox, alongside the maestro Jeremy Karp. And Jeremy, oh boy, this is not what we wanted to come to a realization on a Saturday night, huh?
No, James, it is not. It's heartbreaking to think that this is how the careers of two future Hall of Famers and one of the all-time great pitchers in franchise history, and Adam Wainwright, are going to end.
And to follow up with that, it's really interesting. You included Adam Wainwright in that. Adam did not throw a pitch in the two games that were played against Philadelphia. It'll be interesting to see at one point in time he makes a decision regarding next year, and certainly it makes me think that obviously Ollie and Mike Maddox did not have confidence to put him in any spot in this series. I think we both agree with that. But what are your thoughts when it comes to Adam Wainwright?
I mean, if he wants to come back, I will totally support it. I mean, remember, he never said that he was going to retire officially at all during the season. There's just been a lot of speculation, and most people figured it would be the best way to go out, considering, Molina's retired now and Pujols retired. So you figured the trio going off together into the sunset is the farewell you would ask for, like in a Hollywood ending.
Right.
But Wainwright gave no true indication of that, and I think now more than ever, since he did not pitch in the postseason, I'm actually glad you brought that up. I would come back one more year.
I kind of agree with that to the extent of, he wants to get to 210 wins. I believe it's Jesse Haynes is the pitcher he would be chasing on the Cardinals record there. I just find it interesting, and we can talk all we want about Ollie's management of the bullpen yesterday and Ryan Helsley and that situation. I found it interesting that Helsley said he felt fine in the eighth inning. He comes back out for the ninth inning, and all of a sudden he started feeling or losing feeling rather in that jammed finger that occurred against the Pittsburgh Pirates earlier this week. I kind of thought that, you had Palante and Jack Flaherty warming up. I might have gone to Jack because it was a clean inning. What would you have done, Jeremy?
First off, I feel like the biggest mistake, especially for game one, was leaving Helsley in for a 5-out attempted save.
Right.
There is no, especially because he is injured and you knew he was injured, even if it wasn't as severe, or which we hope it's not, or as severe as you would think it is, you have your closer out there. There's no reason to have him have to go 5 innings, especially if you want to use him in game two.
Right.
And you have all these other guys. You have Palante, who I feel like pitched well. It's just it was bad defense around him that was his undoing yesterday. Flaherty never got a chance to pitch. And I just feel like it was a lot of mismanagement overall.
I agree with that.
And it's a rookie manager, though. That's the thing. Marmol is not a guy who's been in this business as long as Terry Francona or somebody, or Dusty Baker. He's new to this. He's 36 years old. He's younger than some of the players that he was coaching. And, these mistakes are bound to happen. Is it disappointing? Yes. Is it something that needs to be looked at? Yes. That said, I feel like it could have been a lot worse than it was. And I think now you just take what players you got and, I hate to say it, regroup. And I have a question for you, James. This isn't actually from me. This is from Danny, who is joining us, who's saying, what are they going to do now that Nolan might opt out? Which you and I both know the answer to this one, but I'm going to let you take the reins on this. It is your show.
I expect some of these comments and questions tonight to be just the product of being frustrated that we lost. Nolan Arenado is not going anywhere. I wish we could stop with that. Nolan has nobody to blame but himself. How about produce? And, maybe you win a game. How about play defense in the ninth inning yesterday, Nolan? And we might win a game. Here's the other thing. And I got to address this one while we're at it. The next one down, the Cardinals didn't fail us. Rookie Marmol failed us these two games. Major issue was starting with a lefty in the first game. What do you want? Jose Quintana went out and pitched well. Yeah, sure. The only mismanagement there was the fact that Ollie took him out too early. And I think if you leave him in a little longer, then you can stretch out Gallegos and you can stretch out further down, and you're not using all your bullets, and you still have guys in the bullpen to go to. I get that Cardinal fans are upset right now. I get that we're frustrated. I'm upset.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it. But let's look at things with to take off the glasses, calm down, take a drink of water, take a deep breath, and look at things in a realistic light instead of being upset. Here's the thing. You could talk about the bullpen mismanagement all you want. Sure, that may have cost you the game. Tom Yedman, I feel, has to get to that ball. He should have been playing deeper and in double play depth. Worst case scenario, you get the force at second, the game's still tied, and you go from there. Okay? Because you're probably not going to double up Gene Segura. But Nolan Arenado's not going anywhere. Okay, he made it to the playoffs. Yeah, they didn't win a wild card, they won the division. Thankfully for the new format, or if you lose last night, you're done. But you live, you learn. I mean, he is a rookie. He took this team to 93 wins. The issue I have goes back to kind of the trade deadline, and I've defended Mo. He gets Quintana, he gets Montgomery. Yeah, you probably needed to get a bat. And they didn't, and they still won 93 games. So you put the lineup out there, you put the pitchers out there, with the exception of Helsley because he was hurt. These guys have to execute, and that's been the problem. You can't blame everything on the manager. When you set a lineup, when you set a rotation, when you set a bullpen, it's ultimately up to the players who are getting paid very good money to execute doing their job.
It's interesting that you bring up about the trade deadline. First off, I do find it interesting the guy that recorded the last out for the Phillies was the guy who got traded to the Phillies, and
For JoJo Romero.
For JoJo Romero, who didn't even appear in this postseason, wasn't even on the roster or anything.
Right.
So I do find that like an ironic twist. But the thing of it is, when you talk about the trade deadline, if it's not for Jose Quintana and Jordan Montgomery, we're not in the playoffs.
I agree.
And that's a huge thing, because as much as the bats were struggling as the trade deadline near, and obviously everybody was trying to go all in on getting Juan Soto, the big thing here was that a lot of people knew the Cardinals also needed pitching. The front office knew they needed pitching. They took a chance on two guys who weren't given good chances by the teams they were on. Especially Montgomery, who was given the short end of the stick.
And he pitched well tonight.
And he pitched well. This is the thing. Starting pitching went very well, was phenomenal for the Cardinals this postseason. The starting pitching was fine. And the Montgomery, I almost consider Montgomery's a start, because he pitched almost just as long as Michaelis did.
Right.
And I also feel like if the Cardinals, quick side note, I feel like if the Cardinals did win tonight and went to game 3, it was going to be Wainwright starting.
I would agree with that.
Yep. Since you had Montgomery pitching today, because he was originally reserved for game 3 if need be.
Or he could have gone to Flaherty, I guess.
Or he could have gone to Flaherty. I think tomorrow would have been a Wainwright-Flaherty game.
Like a piggyback? Yeah.
Like a piggyback type thing. Kind of like how it was Michaelis and Montgomery, which is totally fine. Bullpen today pitched very well. It was a bad mismanaged 9th inning and a complete just bombshell of an offense.
Yeah.
I mean, and I get it. If it wasn't for Goldschmidt and Arenado, we probably wouldn't even be in the playoffs. But if you get to the playoffs, you still have to produce.
Right.
Now, I don't know if it's the last series or 2 against the Pirates that just decided, hey, we're just going to kind of lose the vibe here. But I look at it, and first off, I had said this earlier. I tweeted this out, that you go back to the 2004 World Series, and you look at Scott Rowland, Jim Edmonds, and Reggie Sanders. 3 of the best hitters on that team. Even Pujols struggled that series. But we're going to look at Sanders, Edmonds, and Rowlands here. They went 1 for 39 in the entire World Series. 3 of the hottest bats, all 3 of whom hit over 30 home runs in the regular season. Pitt and Jim Edmonds hit almost 50.
Yeah.
So yeah, It's almost the same here because both Arenado and Goldschmidt just had an absolute cluster fuck
I
of
know.
a postseason.
Yeah.
And let's put it this way: in this series, Goldschmidt and Arenado went 1 for 15 with 6 strikeouts,
Wolf.
and they went 0 for 8 with 5 strikeouts tonight.
I know.
And you can't you just
I
can't
mean,
be doing that.
and Goldie swung at ball 4 that would have loaded the bases with one out in front of Arenado. And I you know, we've talked about this on Roundabout Sports numerous times. It's a 162 game series. There's ups and downs. There's going to be slumps, but there's a reason why these big time players make big time money, because you're clutch. I mean, go back. Matt Holliday was one of the biggest clutch hitters in Cardinals history. Uh,
Right.
Jim Edmonds, Albert Pujols, Scott Rowland, guys like, David Eckstein, and so it does stink, and it sucks that it happens now, but it does happen. I want to address Danny Wiggins with the second question. Sorry to ask another question, but what do you think will happen with some of the coaching staff, and who do you see us signing in the offseason? I really honestly think that the coaching staff, for the most part, stays intact. The one person I could see possibly getting head coach or managerial considerations from other teams might be Skip Schumacher. I know he was in consideration for a couple jobs before he was brought in as the Cardinals bench coach. It'll be interesting to see. Off-season wise, I really think there's going to be to use a Moism, I think there's going to be a lot of churn this offseason. I really do. I think guys like Dakota Hudson, I think guys like, obviously you're going to move on from Alex Reyes. It wouldn't surprise me if they moved on from Tyler O'Neill. Paul DeYoung, I think they try to move as well.
Who can
I
they move
think,
him for, though? That's the thing. Like a bag of Doritos? Paul
I
DeYoung
mean,
has no. It's only a part of it. The only thing, and I'm sorry to cut you off on that, but it's
no,
funny
you're
because
fine.
Paul DeYoung was only on this roster, and we had talked about this on Roundabout Sports with Sadie last week.
Yeah,
Was the only reason he was on there is because they need help on the infield. They need depth, and because there's just not enough infielders to go around. And the problem with that, he's batting 156. He had no improvement coming back from Memphis. At least when guys like O'Neill or Bader went down and they came back up, they showed significant improvement. DeYoung
right.
was just as bad down in Memphis as he was on the big league roster. So unless other teams are somehow the only team I could see them getting a good trade for is with the Colorado Rockies, because they'll just do anything for anything at this rate.
Well, actually, the first team that I thought of was maybe the Baltimore Orioles.
Okay.
A team like that, looking for a middle infielder who's good defensively. It's tough. I mean, the DH is universal now, so it's not like, you can hide somebody in a lineup. And here's the other thing. I mean, you've got Mason Wynn down
Yep.
in the minors, who he's a shortstop. I expect to see Jordan Walker up here next year. I think that the team is going to be young. I think they're going to be exciting to watch, and I think you have to go out and make an attempt to sign a shortstop. You can't keep doing this. And I hate it for Tommy Edman. He's protecting the plate and he pops up to Edmundo Sosa to end the game. And I'm just sitting there thinking, please get it to Nootbaar, because Nootbaar is he's been one of the few that's gotten on base, and he had a base hit to lead off tonight's game, stretched that into a double. And I thought at that point in time, I was like, all right, here we go. And of course,
Yep.
what happens? 2, 3, and 4 leave them stranded. And, we can sit and talk about Nolan Arenado being robbed. The ball he hit yesterday, I thought was going to leave the park when he made contact. Guys, I certainly understand, it just stinks right now. We got another question here. This one from a Phillies fan.
Okay.
Guys had a good season. Too bad your bats went silent in the postseason. Question: do you think? Whew. Here's the thing: would you rather play the devil you know or the devil you don't know? Because the Braves and the Phillies have seen a whole lot of each other, and I think now. So the NLDS will start Tuesday, I believe. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
Oh.
It's one of the days. I think it may alternate. So I mean, look, they can set their rotation now. I mean, today is what, Saturday? So you're
Tuesday.
talking.
It'll start I believe October 11th, which is
So
just
Sunday, Monday, I come back with Noah Syndergaard game 1, and then you roll. See, Ollie cost the Cardinals game 1. It's obvious the hitting philosophy for the team is not working. Seeing the stats for the so Here comes the Jeff Albert conversation. And here's what I'll say to that. Guys like Goldie and Arenado and the veterans, I doubt very seriously that his impact, Jeff Albert's impact on them is going to be any, because they're so set in their ways that they have a certain way of doing it. Yeah, there may be some sabermetric things that they add into it. I hate it. No, I do not want Big Mac as the hitting coach. I think, if you look at it, when they got rid of Buddha, when they got rid of Mark Budaska, I think that's when you really saw the change in philosophy. We can sit here and talk about the hitting philosophy and how it needs to change. And as much as I may agree, disagree, or even be indifferent about it, it's not going to. Baseball's gone the way of the three true outcomes. It's gone to the way of computers and sabermetrics. And as much as we all hate it or clamor for it, I don't think it's going to change anything. I think what you need are, when it comes down to it, in some positions, it's not so much the hitting coach. You just need guys to produce, and you need better hitters all around.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, I like that you brought up the thing about Jeff Albert and his opinions or his impact on guys like Goldschmidt and Arenado, because they are veterans of the game. They've been around long enough to where they have their own thing about them, their own mentality, to where they have the expectation of, I don't really need to coach you because there's not many more things that I can coach you about that you don't already know.
I think my issue is, and apparently the philosophy is the same top to bottom throughout the entire organization. How are these young kids and these prospects prospering at AAA and AA, but when they get brought up, they're not. They go into these big slumps. We saw DeYoung go down to Memphis and kill it, and he comes back up and he couldn't hit it if it was a beach ball. So, maybe it's the idea that, okay, well, you get to the majors and the pitching's better and you can't touch the ball. You can't hit it. You're not picking up the spin, ungodly breaking stuff in the show, as Crash Davis would say, but there is something that says, look, things are better in AA and AAA. Why are they so bad in the majors? We got some more questions here.
Oh, hang on. We're gonna go.
Yeah,
we're gonna go to Sam's question first.
See, the Cardinals consistently make the playoffs but exit early. Do you see them competing with the Braves, Dodgers? Boy, they'll never spin with the Dodgers. That's one thing Cardinal fans have to realize. They will never spin with the Dodgers.
But no team really. There's only one other team that does, and that's in the American League, and that's the Yankees.
Right.
And to me, that's where the big issue lies when it comes to building up teams. It's because the Dodgers can go out and buy anybody they want.
Right.
Other teams have to build their way. And I'm not saying the Dodgers don't have any homegrown talent, but 90% of their roster is guys that have come from other teams.
Well, they take that homegrown talent, develop it, and then flip it for those guys. And
right.
You saw that with Brewstar Gratterall going to Minnesota whenever they in the 3-team trade that when they acquired Mookie Betts. So and back to the point, the last one, and we'll get back to Eddie's question here in a minute, but whether it's Jeff Albert or whatever, it's obvious it's not working. There's a reason they can't compete with Atlanta or LA. And I'll tell you, the reason is a lot of that is with LA, it's money. It's not really, going out and spending money on those big time players. Atlanta, they build their prospects. That team has a lot of homegrown talent, and a lot of that is scouting and developing, so it's, a lot of it is drafting, and that's something we'll have to take a look at, as we go through the offseason now, unfortunately, with looking at Randy Flores and how they draft guys and how they scout guys going forward. But that's one of the reasons, because they're not willing to open up their pocketbooks. I mean, look, the Dodgers go out and buy whoever they want. You're right, Jeremy. In a lot of sports, you cannot buy championships. Baseball happens to be one you can. Let's see. What does Eddie say?
Let's go back to Eddie's. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we need a proven closer. And who do you think our starting catcher will be next year? I'll tell you who I'd like for our starting catcher to be next year. Wilson Contreras.
Yep.
Because we mentioned on Roundabout Sports Wednesday night with Sadie, and you can catch Roundabout Sports every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. with myself and Jeremy. We talked about the fact that with the computerized strike zone coming in and the lack of needing somebody to be as defensive as a catcher with framing, and now you've got PitchCom, so you're calling pitches electronically. I think that Wilson Contreras would be a great fit in the middle of that lineup. As far as a proven closer, I think we have that in Helsley. I really do. And he ran into some bumps in the road where he was giving up some home runs, but solo home runs, as Bob Gibson will tell you, won't kill you as long as they're solo shots. And he really opened up a lot of eyes. But I think look, if I'm Mo, and I'm not, but I'm going to be focusing more on the offense in the hot stove than looking at the pitching staff, unless Adam does announce his retirement, and then I'm looking at another arm.
It's interesting that you brought up in regards to with Eddie's comments about a proven closer. I think Helsley has the potential to be the best closer we've had since Isringhausen.
I agree with that.
I think the only reason he Rick Ankiel'd a lot of his pitches lately, if you will, was just because of his injury.
Yeah.
And because he has never had that much lack of control with his heaters.
I agree with that.
I mean, one of them went right up in the upper corner, almost beamed a guy right in the face.
I saw that.
Obviously, that is something we've never seen out of him. So I feel like, which once again goes back to my original point of not having him out there for a 5-out save would have done wonders. Now, I know there's a minimum rule of how many batters you can face, but 5 is not the minimum amount.
Well, remember, he finished the 8th inning. So, he at the beginning of the 9th, you could have switched pitchers, no problem. Let's see here. Next comment from Mock. Wouldn't even consider it the Dodgers buying talent. All their homegrown talent is produced. Every pitcher they develop. Cy Young contenders. Look at, Chris Taylor, Kiki Hernandez is now in Boston, and because they flipped him for a better player. The Cardinals rely on guys like DeYoung. Let's not forget that at one point in time, Paul DeYoung was an all-star shortstop. And I understand that the offensive output is down now. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and throw any of these guys under the bus, because the hardest thing to do in sports is hit a round ball with a round bat. But, it does seem like as of late, the clutch hitting has not been there. And when you're relying on guys, look, there's no way in hell you should have been relying on a 42-year-old first ballot Hall of Famer as your offense. He went 2 for 4 tonight. I mean,
that was one of the best performances.
Right. The problem is you didn't get I know it. And you didn't get anybody on in front of him, because 8, 9, and 1 struggled. Now, Newbar didn't struggle, but when Newbar got on base, Albert didn't get hit. There was already one
out.
Right.
Well, it's not one out. It's when Newbar was up to bat. There was already almost practically one out every time. Yep. And the problem I have, and once again, sorry, I'll shoot this right back to you, is I did not like them. I think moving Pujols up to second. I feel like they didn't. Pujols is the hottest hitter on the team as of the last week and a half of this season, and there's been no protection around Arenado and Goldschmidt, and by having these guys struggling so much, I just feel like there was a lot of questionable decisions as far as how everything was structured. But once again, it's a rookie manager. What do you expect?
My top 5, I would have gone Newbar, Donovan, Goldie, and then I'd have put Pujols in between Goldie and Arenado.
See, and that works because you have that baseline protection. If Goldie if you have to have 2. I've always, for lineups, put 2 guys that can get on base to start it off.
Yep.
That's when you start. Setters. Yeah. Get the tone setters. Then you get a couple guys who really can drive in the runs. Yep. And you hit the nail on the head right there. You have Goldschmidt in at the 3rd spot. Then if he does, whether he drives in runs or he doesn't, you got Pujols, and then Pujols can pad it for Arenado. Yep. But expecting Goldschmidt and Arenado back to back when they've been struggling as bad as they did was a poor choice. And yes, you're absolutely right about when it regards to DeYoung. You said the hardest thing to do is hit a round ball with the round bat. The way I see it, first off, and that's one of the things is baseball is one of the hardest sports to play, because the amount of contact and hand-eye coordination, it's just the amount of skill is unbelievable. That said, when you get paid what guys like Paul DeYoung get paid, I expect a little bit more than 156.
Yeah, true. All right, so
let's go to Danny's comment.
Yeah, what do you think our pitching staff will look like? Uh, give us some time to think on that. I think that's something that we may talk about Wednesday night on Roundabout Sports. I would say this, Flaherty. Geez, I mean, Quintana and Montgomery. Quintana, his contract's up. I would re-sign him. I would definitely think about re-signing him. Jordan Montgomery's with us another year. Michaelis, I think Michaelis, Quintana, Montgomery, maybe Flaherty, and I think Matthew Liberatore. I mean, I'd leave Wainwright out because I still he's not a given, so you can't put him in there for sure. But I don't know. It's a lot to think about. I'm still trying to, I guess, process the fact that we saw the end of two Hall of Fame Hall of Fame
Two
individual.
iconic careers.
I don't, yeah, and I don't even know if I'm ready to address that quite yet because
No.
this here, on the other hand, if you guys hired Francona from us years ago, you might have had 2 more rings. I highly doubt that because Francona had to step away for health issues for a while too. Whatever. I don't know. I mean,
could have had La Russa.
Yeah,
could have had La Russa again.
Cleveland's probably going to get swept out of the playoffs by the Yankees. So
I don't know about all. I mean,
I do think they get. I do think they get bumped. I don't think it'll be a sweep, but I do think they get knocked out.
And that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you're basically putting the New Bronx Bombers up against 16 rookies.
Right.
I mean, and that's the thing. And to quickly go from the National League and everything regarding the Cardinals to the American League, I think at this point the overwhelming favorites have become the Seattle Mariners.
Oh, I love them. How about that? How about that game turning into a beer league softball game as we got later on in the game? I mean, they come back from being down 8-1.
Did you hear about the shoe though?
Did
you hear about the rally shoe? So a fan puts a shoe on his head. There's a Seattle watch party going on in Seattle at the stadium, and during the 8th inning, when they're trailing 8-1, he puts a shoe on his head, and a bunch of fans around him are like, what the hell? We'll do that too. But haven't been in the playoffs in 20 years. Might as well do something. Right. And after that, Seattle begins their improbable comeback, ties the game with 4 runs, and then eventually they that's when they start their rally, and then they get more runs, and then eventually they win 10-9. Danny, once again, thank you so much.
I forgot about Steven Matz. I think
I like that one though. I do like that idea.
I do think that he'll probably have off-season surgery to repair that knee. I think there's probably some cleanup there. I don't know if it's going to be a full-blown, ACL repair or whatnot. I think they'll probably clean it up and he'll just do some strengthening. But I forgot about him. I mean, really, you could put Quintana in the bullpen. You could put Matz in the bullpen, or you could just take Liberatore and put him in the pen. I don't know what they're going to want to do with him. It's going to be dependent on if they re-sign Quintana and some of these other guys. Zach Thompson's another one that you could look at. I was surprised you didn't see him tonight. But, kudos to the pitching staff in general, because we had worried about the pitching staff and how it was going to line up the rotation and bullpen. And the pitching was not the problem at all. I mean, even in yesterday's debacle and meltdown in the 9th inning, it wasn't the pitching. Palante got the ground ball that he was trying to get. So I don't know. I think let's get into the last segment here, kind of wrap things up, pay homage to Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols. I was not ready for the 3rd out of the 9th inning, obviously, because you wanted Yadi to find a way, or somebody to find a way to push the sun back up in the sky for one more day and give these guys another game tomorrow. It didn't happen. I mean, you go back and it's amazing to think about the careers of these 2 guys. And, I know Albert has his foundation in St. Louis. I'm sure he's going to continue all of his community work. And then, of course, Yadier owns the basketball team. He owns the record label and Puerto Rico. And, of course, he'll be coaching their World Baseball Classic team in 2023. And, you could tell at times this year, obviously, Yadier Molina, I don't think he was ever 100%. Father Time remains undefeated. And, he and Albert, they battled and battled and battled. I would love to see Albert come back. Craig Berube made the comments yesterday that he could see Pujols coming back for one more year, or he wish he would. And he's, even Albert had made the comment in this story, and I think we can tackle this on Wednesday, because the story came out that he almost retired in June. And he really had, a lot of conversations with himself and those around him. And it's just, he even said that he could come back and play for 2 or 3 more years, but he's tired. And, you know, he doesn't have anything else to prove.
I think that's the biggest thing. It's not that he can't. I mean, because Pujols even considered retiring this offseason.
Yep.
Which obviously we are so glad he didn't. We've talked countless times, and I know we'll continue to in the future about the ifs, ands, or buts regarding Pujols' career. But yeah, he's made it clear he could have retired this year, and he could retire in 5 years. But he decided this was the perfect time. This was the year. And when you think about it, he achieved all the main records you could think of. It was another World Series ring though that eluded him. But he won the division title with the Cardinals. He broke 700. He's second all time in RBIs now. I mean, there's I think one of the most fascinating stats that was brought up, I believe either by you or by Sadie last week. He has more extra base hits than strikeouts.
Yep.
That to me is just unreal to think about. So, and then you got Yachty, who's obviously arguably the greatest defensive catcher of all time,
Yep.
who obviously isn't known for his hitting, but is a member of the 2,000 hit club, where there's not a whole lot of catchers who are known for hitting. There's a select category for catchers that are great hitters. You got your
Right.
Yogi Berras, your Johnny Benches, Ivan Rodriguez, Ted Simmons, and Jorge Posada. I know there's other guys, but at the end of the day, I'm glad the final at-bats of both Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina were base hits that
Right.
kept the Cardinals alive.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to see was them strike out or like something happened to where they didn't get. And I think Marvel did a great job pinch hitting, or not pinch hitting, pinch
I
running
do
them.
too. Yep. I agree.
I know a lot of people. It was a good way for them to go off into the dugout, get that last ovation. I know a lot of people also wanted Nolan Gorman to pinch hit for Yadier Molina and that last at bat.
Right.
And you know, this is the thing. There were 2 outs. One way or another, that was going to be it for Yachty.
Right.
He was either going to get a base hit and had a pinch runner come in, or he was going to be the one to get out and end the season. But one way or another, the season would live and die by number 4. And honestly, I think that's how it should be, because that's how a guy that's been a staple of the franchise, the face of this franchise for nearly 2 decades, he has to be there.
Yep.
You
I
want
agree.
you want to see his face. And one more quick shout out for the Cardinals, who I remember this morning when they announced the lineup, everybody was shitting the bed on Corey Dickerson, but he had perhaps the best night of everybody on
Yeah.
that lineup. Him and Lars Nootbaar really shined tonight. So
I agree.
kudos to Corey Dickerson and Lars Nootbaar. Overall, of course, it's going to be a disappointing season. I mean, the Cardinals are 6-18 in their last 24 postseason games.
Yeah.
They are losers of 9 out of their last 10 postseason games. And it's not gotten any more pleasant for them. I
Right.
mean, I think another way to put it, another way to put it is, okay, here we go. I mentioned earlier about them struggling with runners in scoring position in the past. And of course, with them getting shut out tonight, that goes without saying how bad it was. I believe they were 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, and they left 9 men on base, which, yeah, that's definitely going to help you win games. So that's something that needs to be addressed. You have these guys that are batting 270, 280, a couple 300s, surrounded or packed in, surrounded by guys who bat 240, 230.
Yep.
And that is the root issue right here, is that you have to have more of a consistency. Now, obviously, you're not going to get a lineup that's all hitting 300, and you're wanting to avoid a lineup that's hitting 230 all over.
True.
But you need to find that middle ground to where from top to bottom, look at the old Whitey Ball lineups.
Yeah.
He didn't get guys that could hit all of the home runs. He didn't even get guys who could get all the triples and everything. He just got guys that could hit the ball, put it in play, and get on base.
Yeah.
Look at their on base percentages, So I don't know. It was a good year, but it was a depressing year.
Well, to wrap things up, there's only one really thing you can say, and that's the fact that at the end of every sports season, there's only one team that is truly happy with how things and how their season concludes. So, it does stink. It burns. It's frustrating, but we wanted to hop on here, do a show, kind of do an instant reaction to the game. And obviously the Cardinals fall to the Phillies in 2 games of the 3-game series. And, going forward, the Phillies will take on the Atlanta Braves. The Mets were able to stave off elimination against the Padres tonight, game 3 of that series tomorrow. In the American League, it would be Cleveland and the Yankees, and then the Mariners and the Astros going forward there series-wise. So remember, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just
No,
going to
go ahead.
say, before we close it up, as always, we have the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, as we do on Roundabout Sports and every other programming here on Interstate 70 Sports Media. Mental health is a very important cause in this world, and this coming Monday is actually going to be World Mental Health Day.
Yep.
So for Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, dial 988. Understand you are never alone, and that there's always somebody out there who loves you and is willing to listen to you. The line's open 24/7, 365. And with that, I'm going to let James close out this show because it is the strike zone. It's his specialty.
I was actually, that's what I was going to say when I said remember, that's where I was going with that. So I'm glad you put that up there. Again, remember the Strike Zone brought to you by Interstate 70 Sports, where our passion is our profession. Remember to also tune in Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. for Roundabout Sports with your host, Jeremy Karp, and myself. And I'm sure this Wednesday night we will continue to wrap up the Cardinal season that was. We'll also talk about what has been a crazy day in college football, and I'm sure tomorrow's NFL slate will be the same.
Hopefully less depressing than last week's for us.
Boy, let's hope so, because I need a really good sports week. But again, thanks for everybody tuning in. Thanks for your questions. For the Maestro Jeremy Karp, I am Hollywood James Knox, and take care of yourself and each other. We'll see you Wednesday night on Roundabout Sports. Good night.